start by not killing each other. He was on the right path, and now Zelensky has folded his tent, and he has joined in as well. Good news, isn't it?
It's great news, and isn't it great to have a president who knows how to negotiate for America and not against America? For Zelensky to come in there, dressed like he was, interrupting the president at every turn, challenging J.D. Vance on everything. It's America was ready for that. I'm glad they had a front row seat to it. And Donald Trump is at his best. His timing was unbelievable. And Ukraine has already gotten $100 billion from us. They need something. And to have that attitude, it was time for attitude adjustment. He didn't know his audience, and Donald Trump taught him who he was dealing with.
Well, he sure did. And the fact of the matter is, in all the polling ever since that happened, the American people are on the side of Donald Trump. Even CNN reporting that in a series of polls that they have put out over the last couple of days. The American people support Donald Trump and his handling of the war. Look, he set up a situation here where both sides can claim victory, Russia and Ukraine. Russia can say, look, we won. We're going to keep Crimea. We're going to keep a sliver of Ukraine on the east side. And Ukraine can say, well, we won because we're having, countries come in and mine and put in infrastructure and bring money into Ukraine. Russia's going to be back to selling oil and natural gas to Europe, making plenty of money. So everybody wins here, and we get peace. So Donald Trump wins, and America wins, and really the world wins. I mean, this is a trifecta if he can pull it off, that being the president. I believe we might have lost the congressman there for just one moment. We'll get him back. Congressman, I think it's a trifecta win for President Trump because Russia wins, Ukraine wins, the killing stops, and therefore the American people win. What say you?
Well, the best deal is when both parties win. And that's what happened with Donald Trump. But we're negotiating from strength. Ukraine was not negotiating from strength. And Donald Trump, as he told him face to face, he didn't have the cards to have that kind of attitude. And he wants peace, which is what Americans want. And it's, I think, what the Ukrainian people want. And so it's a new day in America. It's a new day in the world. And what a great message is sending to our allies all over the world that you finally got a commander-in-chief of the greatest nation in the world who knows how to operate. He knows how to deal from a position of strength. And the world is better off, and Ukraine will be better off if we make a deal with them.
Well, let me ask you this. Speaking of our allies, the UK, France, Germany, Canada, all saying, well, we'll step up and we'll back Ukraine whether the United States does or not. Look, none of these countries have fought a war in 40 or 50 years. I'm not sure the English could get the Falkland Islands back at this point. I'm really not convinced of it. They've neglected their militaries for years. Why? Because we picked up the bill. We've provided the equipment. We've been there to have their back every step of the way, and we pay for NATO. We pay for the United Nations. I'm sorry. I don't take France, the UK, Germany, or Canada too seriously here. France is the only country that has much of an army left of all of those countries. They need America, and they know it. Whether they want to, posture and puff up their chest doesn't matter. They need America. Without us, there is no defending Europe, is there?
There's no defending them for not stepping up. They're the ones that had the most to gain and to lose. And you look at those countries; they're turning socialistic. I just got back from London for an economic summit. And London is England's in a tough situation with their government, with Parliament, and but they've got to step up and pay for their own protection. And you're right, England has focused on everything else, but not the military. And France has never been a stalwart when it comes to military arms, and Germany is in a tight spot too economically. So we'll see what happens. But Donald Trump's taking the right position. Let others who have the most to gain contribute a greater percentage of their GDP than America bearing the brunt of it, and it's borrowed money from our standpoint anyway.
Sure. Let's talk about from the war in Ukraine to this economic war. Justin Trudeau finds himself in the middle of both of these things as he's getting pushed out of office because he's very unpopular. Obviously, they're the Prime Minister of Canada. I don't believe the Canadian people would have supported sending 25 or 50,000 Canadian soldiers to Ukraine. I don't think they ever would. And now he's gotten to the situation where Donald Trump says, you need to clean up your border. You need to slow the fentanyl. You need to slow the invasion of illegals coming into America. And now Justin Trudeau apparently wants to get into a trade war. Look, is it going to pinch some American consumers and some American companies here in the first few weeks? Possibly. But in the long run, I don't see how Canada can sustain a trade war, a tariff battle with Donald Trump in the United States. What do you say?
Well, with Donald Trump in the United States, you can't bluff him, as Zelensky found out the hard way. Now, the 25% tariff that the president put on him, it's got to be fair trade. And in my business, a lot of lumber comes from Canada. Will prices go up? Yes. We'll see how long it lasts. I don't think they can continue this to have a so-called trade war. Canada's not operating from a position of strength either. So, it's time they come to the table. And think about it. The fentanyl that's killed hundreds of thousands of American young people has got to stop. And is that too much to ask of Canada? I don't think so. But Donald Trump means what he says, and he says what he means. And the tariffs will stay in place until he gets the leverage that he needs on them.
And to be clear about this, the tariffs are 25%. And I don't know how I feel about across-the-board 25% tariffs. Usually they're targeted towards steel or something of that nature, or timber. The tariff on energy is only 10%, so Donald Trump did, pare that down dramatically. But you mentioned in your business, timber. Wouldn't this be a way to usher in a lessening of regulations on American timber? Look, we have vast amounts of timber in this country, yet we regulate ourselves out of natural resources. America has oil, gas, farmland, timber, fresh water. We've got it all. We've got it in spades, Congressman, and yet we allow the fringe to shut the door on all these things. Maybe it's time to lower regulations and put American business back to work.
I think the regulations will be the first thing that we'll find out that will happen to the benefit of those who are growing timberland, the sawmills that have shut down. They've done that because they've been regulated out of business. And environmentalists who require silt fences on farm roads that have no impact on the environment, much less the farm itself, has got to end, and they've got to make money too. But I think this will usher in a dependence on American timber, as it will, and as we've seen in the companies that are now deciding that America is the place to invest their money. Look, there's an overall confidence that they have in Donald Trump. And this is just the 100 days. It hasn't even been 100 days. More to come.
Hasn't even been 40.
I think the timber will lead the way.
It has not even been 40 days, Congressman. I mean, we're just getting started. Isn't it interesting? I saw a bunch of your Democrat colleagues regurgitating the identical script about the price of eggs is up and all the clown show that turned out to be. But the fact of the matter is, this is a hangover from Joe Biden's administration. They pushed billions of dollars into the economy just before they left office. That creates inflation. Everybody knows it. It's pretty simple stuff. If you do this, this is going to happen. It's cause and effect. But where do we go from here when it comes to the economy? Donald Trump's theme tonight is going to be pursuing the American dream. Look, in South Carolina, in your district, there are people there that are struggling today. There are people that are doing reasonably well. But we have to get to a point where the American dream is attainable again, don't we?
We do, and it starts with energy independence. We've got to drill our own oil, our own natural gas, export it. That'll be the key that unlocks Americans to prosper again. And the Democrats can complain all they want. Where were they the last 4 years? Where were all their solutions that they're blaming a man who hasn't even been in office 100 days? Let them continue it. The American people see through it. And you're going to see a country that's going to take the shackles off and unleash the power that has been so sorely needed, particularly over the last 4 years. And it won't. It'll be things like energy independence. It'll be the crime rate. It'll be the illegal immigration is sapping our strength. All of the above will be what Donald Trump says tonight, and is real. And best summation I can say is promises made, promises kept.
I agree with that. I want to focus on something you just said right there, because I was pretty astonished. I think a lot of people were. We knew that the border crossings were going to go down, but 8,300 total border crossings apprehensions recorded in February. 8,300. That's for the whole month. That's not for a day. That's not for a week. That's for the entire month. During the Biden administration, we had days when 12 and 15,000 would come over in a single day. That's not counting the app. And of course, they got rid of that CBP app, so that doesn't happen anymore. What a remarkable achievement. In less than 40 days, they brought the number to less than 9,000 a month. I mean, I don't know how you could do any better than that.
No, and it's because the gangs and those who are coming across, Mexico as a country, Canada, this president means business. And not only is he building the wall, but he's sending troops in where it's needed, where they've been coming across, to stop what's been killing this country, both economically and drug-wise, that has come from China and through the ports of entry. And the thing about it, Steve, they don't know how many people are in this country. It's what we do know is it's down 97%. In less than 40 days of what a leader like President Trump has been able to do. And it's not rocket science. He, he stopped the flow. They knew they could not get a free ride into America. And if you're going to come to America, do it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, what's remarkable, and I'll just make this comment, but they kept telling us 12 million illegals in America. It was the same for 25 years. It's remarkable. It was always 12 million, 11 million, 20. The number never changed, Congressman. What a remarkable thing that was. I appreciate you being here. We will watch with interest tonight, 9 p.m., the address to a joint session of Congress. Not a State of the Union technically, but really that's what it is. Congressman Ralph Norman, always good to see you, my friend.
My pleasure. Thank you.
There you have it. All right, after the break, as we were talking about there, we'll talk about more. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau seems to have gotten a little bit more full of himself, this time triggering a trade war with the United States. We'll have details straight ahead. And Congressman Wesley Hunt of Texas. Don't go anywhere. Big day, of course, 9 o'clock tonight. The president will address that joint session of Congress. We're looking forward to that. Meanwhile, Canada seems to think that they can win a trade war with the United States. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who's as lame as a lame duck can be, has announced 25% retaliatory tariffs on American goods in response to President Donald Trump's tariffs that went into effect on Canadian imports into this country. The retaliatory tariffs Canada is imposing on $155 billion of U.S. goods went into effect this morning. Canada said it will start with tariffs on $30 billion worth of American goods, followed by tariffs on $125 billion more in 21 days. President Trump responded on Truth Social by saying, quote, "Please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he puts on a retaliatory tariff on the U.S., our reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount." They really don't know what they're in for. Here with me to discuss this is Congressman Wesley Hunt of Texas. He is in the Capitol Rotunda. Nice place for him today. Congressman, nice to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me on, of course.
Good to have you. Look, I don't think that anybody has an appetite for a trade war. However, Donald Trump has been clear that he wants to make sure we reduce the amount of fentanyl coming into this country. Killed 100,000 people in this country last year. Would kill 100,000 this year. He's very concerned about illegal immigrants coming into this country, though I must say last month only 8,300 recorded illegals caught crossing the border, the southern border. What do you make of the tariffs, first of all? Is it something you're comfortable with? Does it concern you on some levels? What's your take?
It doesn't concern me at all. I mean, President Trump is basically leveraging America's strength to make people pay their fair share. And by the way, Canada and Mexico, they are not only covered by us from a military standpoint, but they're covered by us economically just by virtue of being on North American continent with the most powerful country in the entire world. So I really have no tolerance for Canada talking about, entering a trade war with the most powerful country in the entire world based on what we provide for them. So again, this is Trudeau trying to flex. He's a lame duck. It's not going to last very long, and President Trump, in the end, will get his way as he tends to do. You bring up fentanyl and what's happening at our southern border. Keep in mind that over 2 years ago, we passed H.R. 2 to secure our border, and the Hippocratic Democrats were the ones that told us that we couldn't secure the border, that we were against it, even though we passed H.R. 2 2 years ago. And you mean to tell me that within 5 weeks, President Trump has literally fixed our southern border? Fentanyl is no longer pouring into our country at the rate that it was before he was president. When Biden was president, we had enough fentanyl pouring into this country to kill every single American 6 times. That has now come to an end. The cartels are no longer running our border. We are running our sovereign nation yet again. And I don't really care what Trudeau does. Guess what? At the end of the day, you will bend the knee.
Absolutely. Wesley Hunt, I like your attitude here today because that's the attitude of a lot of Americans. You look at the polling numbers. Americans support Donald Trump on how he's handling President Zelensky. We'll get to that, on how he's handling the border, how he's handling natural resources. And I want to ask you about this a little bit because a lot of what we have in America, whether it's timber, water, natural gas, oil, obviously you're from an energy state, but a lot of that gets pushed back because of fringe elements in America. Look, we have natural resources in spades in this country. We should have access to them. What do you suggest we do when it comes to natural resources? We should be producing more energy, more timber, more minerals, more everything, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. We have to unleash American energy, not just for our country, but for our allies all over the world. And keep in mind, President Trump told the European Union back in 2018 not to rely on Russian oil and natural gas. They should have been relying on us to supply them with American-made natural gas and American-made oil, and this war would have never started in the first place. And now the European Union is funding this war on both sides by using Russian energy, and also by giving the Ukrainians money. They're funding this war, basically. And so if we unleash American energy on the entire world, we're sitting on the Permian Basin, the Marcellus Shale. God gave us these resources. Why in God's name are we going to relinquish our power to Iran and Venezuela and rogue nations that obviously don't have our interests in their best heart? Now, clearly, we need to be operating in the best interest of the American people. That's what President Trump is doing. It makes sense to me. And rather, some people may not like President Trump's style. I personally love his style. Strength is back in America at the end of the day. Everyone is on notice. The world is on notice that America is back, and we are absolutely here for it. The days of old with Sleepy Joe are over, and now you will respond to the strongest nation in the world. That's what I love most about what President Trump is doing.
Yeah, and energy policy is where it starts, Congressman. You're exactly right about that. A strong energy policy means a prosperous United States. And yes, we can sell LNG to Europe, to Germany specifically, and any other country that wants to line up at the spigot. We'll sell it. We'll make sure that they're all taken care of. Let me ask you about something else. Obviously, in the headlines, President Zelensky came back with his hat in his hand today saying, you know what? I was wrong. I need to work with President Trump in the United States and work on peace, which is why Donald Trump yesterday said we're going to cut off all aid until the Ukrainian president comes back and is serious about pursuing peace and, first of all, getting to a ceasefire. How important is this?
Well, it turns out that he didn't have the cards, just like President Trump said. And keep in mind, if the Israelis can sit down at the table with Hamas, of all people, and broker a peace deal and exchange hostages, then I can assure you that Zelensky can sit down with Putin to have peace in their country and have peace in the world. President Trump ran on this. He ran on people not dying. That's what he cares about. And at this point, you cannot blame President Trump for any of this, because for every previous president that we have had had in the last 4 decades, Vladimir Putin has invaded a country or annexed another country, except for under President Trump. So let me tell you something. He means business, and Zelensky has to get on board with our agenda. Believe me, they need us way more than we need them.
I want your take on this, though. For about 48 hours there, Germany, Canada, the UK, France, all posturing and puffing up their chests. Well, we'll send boots on the ground. We'll put planes in the air. No, you won't. You haven't fought a war in 50 years, any of you. You've neglected your military for just as long. As I said to Ralph Norman here moments ago here on this program, your colleague, I don't think that the UK could get the Falkland Islands back at this point. Their military is so depleted. The only thing they have is American military might, which, by the way, remains the best in the world. So this whole idea that our allies were, posturing, it's all a paper tiger. It's nonsense. Without America, they have little to deal with. I'll give you the last word.
Of course, and the EU offered them a $2 billion loan. That's it. We have given them $350 billion of our tax-paying, hard-earned tax-paying dollars. Let's get serious. President Trump wants the EU to pay their fair share. The EU's GDP is roughly the size of the United States' GDP, and yet we are paying more for this war than they are, and it's a greater threat to them in proximity. So again, they got to pay their fair share. The war must end. People must stop dying, and everyone has to come to the table. That's all President Trump wants. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to happen. I have a very bold prediction that by the summertime, we're going to have world peace. And this is because of the strong leadership of President Trump, and America is back.
And my prediction is we'll hear that tonight, Congressman, as well, just after 9 o'clock. So thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. God bless you.
Thank you very much. There you have it. All right. Congressman Wesley Hunt from the great state of Texas. After the break, as we just discussed, the executive order authorizing tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China, all back starting today. We'll discuss that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. back to it. Look, there are a lot of things we have to address here every day. The topic of discussion today, when it comes to tariffs that are back on, as of today, on the Canadian, Mexican, and Chinese import, we saw this discussed and how Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau acted. But what about Mexico? What about China? Joining me to discuss this is the Conservative Caucus President, Jim Pfaff. Jim, welcome back to the program.
See you, Steve.
Well, all right, so I just saw this. Doug Ford is the Premier of Ontario, Canada. He says no American company is allowed to sell anything in Ontario, which is the biggest of the provinces, by the way. I'm surrounded by Ontario. I hope the Canadians don't invade today. But I think it's a terrible folly on Doug Ford's part. He's the premier, which is like being a governor in the province of Ontario. Meanwhile, you've got Justin Trudeau. He says we will fight with 25% tariffs. And Donald Trump said, well, you don't understand. Whatever tariff you put on, we're going to add that to what we're doing. You want to have a trade war? We'll do it right now, and you're going to lose. I don't think Canada, they might be able to inflict a little bit of economic injury on us. There might be some inflation involved with it. But they can't stand toe-to-toe with this economy. They can't do it, can they?
No, they can't. And listen, I come from a very Austrian economics way of thinking when it comes to this stuff, which would typically say, and it's kind of sad how people in that libertarian mold will say no tariffs. I have been saying for years, what we need to do is have these reciprocal trade agreements. I mean, precisely what Donald Trump has been talking about. He gets this. He's got it for a long time. See, here's the deal. What we have done in the United States is given away the whole store to other countries. Now, right after World War II, we did this because there was so much economic destruction related to the war, and we tried to, especially with countries that were the worst in recovering from Europe and so forth, we gave them agreements where they got all the benefits and we took on the tariffs that we ended up paying to them. Good or bad on that policy, fast forward to today, and we maintain that same relationship with them. So we've got countries that are free countries that we should, honestly, I would like to see no tariffs on either side. I mean, that's really where we need to go with this. Donald Trump's committed to going to that. But for countries like China and others that have more authoritarian regimes that put some problems on their people, we do not have to give them favorable status. I was arguing against the most favored nation status being given to China during the Clinton administration. It was a huge mistake because this is a country that is literally harming their people. So what we need to do, this is a good strategy. Yes.
They always have, Jim. That's the thing. And, you go back to normalizing relations with China in the 1970s, spearheaded by Richard Nixon. I thought it was a folly then. I'm not sure it's been much better since. Look, the Chinese do not respect human rights. They do not respect the rule of law. They do not respect our sovereignty. They don't respect anything for the most part when it comes to the United States, and certainly not the Western world. And to delude yourself into thinking otherwise, I'm sorry, it is folly. The Chinese have an interest in one thing, China. That's it. Everything under heaven, as they're saying, belongs to China. That's what they truly believe, and I don't disagree with you on that. I want to talk about the asymmetrical tariffs, though, coming out of the EU. Here's where Donald Trump pointed out something else. We put all this money into NATO. We put all of this money into the United Nations. We put all this money into the World Health Organization, and the list goes on. America always gets the bill, and the EU seems to always get the benefit. And then they have these asymmetrical tariffs costing us $200 billion a year. It does have to stop, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Listen, we love Europe. So much of what we have as a nation and the ideas of freedom, we're in gestation phase in Europe by the time we became a country in the late 18th century and the formation of the United States. So we're grateful for that. I mean, there's a lot of good history there, and the whole Judeo-Christian ethic that undergirds our constitutional system, as well as what began in ancient Greece and somewhat in Rome.
Well, I get all that, but let me jump in there, Jim, because I got to say this. Tulsi Gabbard put a big red circle around this yesterday saying, what are we fighting for in Europe? They throw people in jail for mean tweets. Yeah. They throw people in jail because they say something about transgenderism. They throw people in jail if you pray in the wrong place and offend somebody who's a Muslim. What are we fighting for? We're not certainly fighting for American-style freedom. Anyhow, I get a little fired up, but I'll give you the last word, Jim.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. I mean, they are turning authoritarian and autocratic in their methodologies. So, trade needs to be between nations that give respect to one another, and for our benefit, because we're such a large economy, we need to encourage countries to give freedom to their citizens. So we absolutely, I mean, Donald Trump is absolutely right to totally reform this trade structure. And by the way, the benefit to us may also be that we can get rid of our income taxes eventually and get rid of the IRS. Nice? Yeah.
Jim, we got to leave it right there. Greatly appreciate you being here as always. I got to run, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Good to see you.
It is a new day in America and a new administration in Washington, D.C. A lot of excitement and optimism about the future from our side, maybe not the others. But the reality is there's a lot of work to do, especially when it comes to fixing our broken health care system. The truth is the forces that are responsible for breaking our health care system aren't going to go simply away. The challenges our system faces won't disappear overnight. You know that. So now more than ever, you need to be prepared for whatever comes around the corner. That's where the Wellness Company comes in, taking care of your good health. It's doctors or medical professionals that you can trust, and their line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. Whether it's the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, or the travel kit, plus a new kit for kids, these prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist you in the proper use of these medications. I've used these kits. From the flu to strep throat, COVID to the bird flu, a trip down to the beach, or a trip around the world, the Wellness Company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your family safe. Make America healthy again starts at home. Do your part and protect the health of you and your family. Go to twc.health/voice. twc.health/voice. Do that today and order. The promo code is VOICE. You'll save 10%. I'll be right back. Governor Hassan Piker. No stranger to controversy, once again making headlines for his reckless rhetoric. Piker, who has previously made inflammatory statements, including saying America deserved 9/11 and dismissing the brutal rapes of Israeli women on October the 7th, has now taken aim at medical and Medicaid fraud discussions in a way that some say openly encourages violence. During a live stream reacting to House Speaker Mike Johnson's call to root out Medicaid waste and fraud, Piker dismissed concerns about individuals abusing the system. Instead, he deflected, targeting former Florida Governor Rick Scott, even suggesting that if someone really cared about fraud, they would kill Rick Scott. Joining out to discuss it, TPUSA contributor Morgan McMichael. Morgan, he seems nice.
Such a nice person. You know, Hassan is not someone new to controversy, but I think threatening the death of somebody while streaming to your very large audience, I believe he has over 2 million subscribers on just Twitch alone, is not something you should be doing, especially when you're familiar with the media. He should be familiar with the guidelines of not threatening death upon somebody, which he has retracted his statement since then and has now said, you know, he just wishes the worst punishment possible on former Governor Rick Scott. So, you know, it's quite interesting to see how once Twitch removed his stream entirely and has banned him from the platform, he now retracted the death statement and moved it to just an extreme punishment. And, you know, I don't think anyone is innocent when we need to be looking at Medicare and Medicaid. And yes, we do need to be rooting out fraud, but maybe threatening people is not the way, and we should actually be addressing the root problems here.
But how much do we see this, Morgan? We see this because we see this Chuck Schumer threatening Supreme Court justices, AOC and Maxine Waters threatening other people like Elon Musk. I mean, do you think Elon Musk is safe, or a lot of the folks in Congress? We've seen Rand Paul run down the streets in Washington, D.C., and the list goes on and on and on. Hell, we've seen members of Congress get gunned down by wacko liberals at baseball games. And they continue to pump out this rhetoric, this vitriol, this hatred, and then they say it's the Republicans that are violent. It is so out of whack, isn't it?
It is. The inciting violence that is coming from the left is honestly, like, we can't stand with it anymore. And I don't think we can put up with it anymore, because for too long we have allowed the left to just continue to tout their violence and wish death upon many Republican Party members. And I really just think that's unacceptable behavior. So I will say good on Twitch for removing the stream and suspending him, where this is his 5th suspension on the platform. I do think it's interesting you mentioned AOC. AOC is actually gone on the stream to discuss various topics with Hassan. And so it really seems to me like the large liberal voices are the ones that are continuously inciting violence and encouraging people to go out in society and wish harm upon people.
Well, while saying it's Christian nationalists and white supremacists and everybody's a racist and all this other crap they try to smear on people like you and I, frankly, Morgan, that is completely false, bogus, and they keep going to the same well. But look, the American voters, I think, rejected this. And something else I want to ask you about, in your generation, obviously, here on the college campuses, Donald Trump says no tolerance for these protests targeting and talking about violence towards Jewish students on campus. Will not be tolerated this year at all. That's a nice change, isn't it?
It's a very nice change, especially seeing how those Hamas terrorist encampments were over the past year on college campuses. I will say that we have seen the tide continue to shift in the conservative direction. I will say that even on the current tour that Turning Point USA is on with Charlie Kirk, we are seeing somewhat bigger numbers than we did during the election cycle. You know, these college students aren't scared to come out and support the conservative movement any longer. And so I think that what we're going to see is an even larger uprising of Gen Z students pushing back. And instead of having these protests, we're actually going to see more pro-America voices present on these campuses.
I hope that's true, Morgan. We'll find out tonight as we hear more about pro-America from Donald Trump during his address to a joint session of Congress. 9 o'clock tonight here in Real America's Voice. Morgan, thank you as always for being here. Nice seeing you. Listen, that's going to happen tonight, 9 o'clock. Donald Trump right here, his address to a joint session of Congress. So don't go anywhere. America's Voice Live will continue after a quick break. We'll have complete coverage beginning at 8 o'clock here, by the way, on Real America's Voice. Make sure you tune in. Like I said, complete team coverage tonight beginning at 8 o'clock. I'll be right back. As we have talked about, President Trump set to give his first speech in front of a joint session of Congress. Real America's Voice will be there to bring you all the details, and live coverage starts at 8 o'clock tonight. Joining me now to discuss this, our chief White House correspondent, Brian Glenn, who's been right there for a front seat watching history in the making. He was there when President Zelensky had his meltdown, I suppose, his moment there of petulance. I don't know how to describe it. He lost his nerve, and then today he came crawling back, Brian, but you were right there. You're the one that asked him about the suit or lack thereof, and that's been heard around the world. But let's start with this. What do you make of Zelensky saying, look, I was wrong, basically. I'm paraphrasing. I was wrong. I need to work with Donald Trump and the United States to get this together, to get peace in my country. Big change of heart.
It is a big change of heart, and it comes right after the world absolutely blamed President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and myself for, quote, bullying President Zelensky into that in the Oval Office, and then come to find out, I guess today he said, "Well, I'm sorry. Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I didn't take advantage. Maybe I handled the situation not in the best fashion. Let's come back and do it again." So that is, in my opinion, an admission of guilt, and we'll see where it goes from there. I do like, however, last night, President Trump saying on Truth Social, if NATO's got this handled, okay, well, let's you guys do it. He's kind of calling his bluff a little bit, but change of heart overnight.
Yeah, here's the thing. If people haven't figured this out yet, and look, you've got a relationship with the president. You're there with the press corps basically every day. He doesn't bluff. Donald Trump told Zelensky, you don't have the cards. And then he ran over to London and met with, the UK, Keir Starmer, and he met with Macron, and he met with the folks from Germany and Canada. And they all said, well, we will back you and send in boots on the ground and planes in the air. They don't have the boots or the planes. Let me give people an example here. Do you realize that Canada has 63 fighter jets? If they sent 10 over, that'd be 16% of their fleet. They don't have the resources. We do. That's the point, and that was the point that Donald Trump was making, isn't it?
It is. We've sent 3.45 million rounds of ammunition. I think the EU combined has been just over 1 million. So the contribution that we have given them is more than, quote, your fair share, to take the words out of Joe Biden's mouth all the time. We have done it. We have provided the assistance. And for him to come in there and kind of disrespect what we've done for him. And I will say this, Steve, you can judge a book by its cover. And I made the mention of the suit, which I think reflects the inner opinion that he has on our country and the lack of respect, of the generosity that the American taxpayers. Mind you, this war is extremely unpopular amongst the American people. They want nothing to do with it. Let's be very unpopular. Ukraine needs America. America absolutely does not need Ukraine. We don't need anything from this country. They're not a member of NATO, and we shouldn't get involved. And NATO's a whole nother topic that we can on another day. But my goodness, a change of heart, because he knows he doesn't have the strength to do what he wants to do without our help. And at the end of the day, Steve,
here's where
President Trump wants world peace.
Right, here's where we are. Donald Trump wants a ceasefire. And Zelensky was pushing back against that. Well, we need agreements first. No, you need the bullets and the bombs to stop flying first. And then we can kind of figure out where we are. Look, we're in a situation where Donald Trump can allow Vladimir Putin to think he won, and he can allow Zelensky to think he won. Vladimir Putin can start selling oil and gas to the EU nations again and stay back behind the line. And Ukraine can have American investors and EU investors and Canadian investors come in and build infrastructure and mine rare earth minerals. I mean, everybody wins. And look, Russia's not going to come in there and mess with America if we're set up on the ground. That's the point. You don't need an agreement or an assurance. There it is. Anyhow, I'm sure we'll hear that tonight. I also think that we'll hear Donald Trump tell us that the number of border crossings in the whole month of February was 8,341. Hello, that's for the whole month, Brian. That's not for a day. That's for the whole month. It's the lowest record ever. It's the fewest number of illegals coming across our border ever recorded. I mean, it's an achievement, a real achievement in less than 40 days.
Yeah. 40 days to do that. And, Joe Biden and that administration couldn't do it in 4 years. They didn't give a rat's you-know-what about that border. It was perfectly clear when Kamala was deemed the border czar and went to El Paso, not even where near the crisis was. And we don't have to rehash all of that. But look, Steve, you're absolutely right. We're solving the border crisis. We're going to get that wall built, all of it, that big, beautiful wall. We're going to get it built. We're going to get those crossings down to zero. And we're going to start removing people from this country at a mass deportation I don't think we've ever seen before in U.S. history. It's good that we get criminals out of this country, Steve. Yeah. It's a good thing.
Got to go. So let me ask, where are you going to be tonight during the address? We'll have special coverage here beginning at 8 o'clock, but where can people expect to see you reporting from?
Okay, I'm in the Cannon building just outside the Rotunda, which is right behind me. The Capitol is across the street on the other side of Independence. We'll be here all night, as you know. Coverage kicks off at 8 p.m. And, of course, the speech starts at 9. We'll probably run about an hour, 20, hour and 30, depending on how many times the Republicans stand up and clap and how much the Democrats stand up and do whatever they could do. Word has it they do have some dressed in pink, some dressed in white, and some will not be attending tonight. But you know what? The American people don't care. They can stay home because we're getting to work here in Washington, D.C. Yeah, they do not.
Brian Glenn, our chief Capitol correspondent. Sir, thank you very much. As always, we'll talk again soon, Brian. Thank you. Again, 8 o'clock tonight, right here on Real America's Voice. You want to tune in, you want to see the entire broadcast from the incredible Real America's Voice team on the ground in D.C., including our friend Brian Glenn. All right, after the break, we'll tell you what makes America wonderful. And the question of the day today, that's an interesting look for me. I think I kind of liked it. I didn't mind. Pie in the face look. We'll take a break and be right back on Real America's Voice. Well, as you know, the Internal Revenue Service is the largest collection agency in the world. And with April 15th fast approaching, they're more aggressive than others. Let's just be honest. In 2025, enforcement ramped up. If you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns waiting, guys, it's not an option. The longer you do, the worse it gets. It's that simple. Ignoring your tax troubles, it literally is the worst thing you can do. April 15th marks another tax year that has passed you by. Getting ahead of this now is the smart move, but never contact the IRS alone. Instead, let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Why? Because not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know exactly which agents to deal with and which ones to avoid. With proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Talk with one of their strategists today. It's free. Stop the threatening letters, stop looking over your shoulder, and protect yourself from property seizures and bank levies. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. April 15th, just around the corner. Act now before it's too late, all right? All right, how about that question of the day here on Real America's Voice? What do you expect out of President Trump's address to Congress tonight? What do you expect, huh? Let's go with this. What's our first answer? There it is, reading the Epstein list live. That would get their attention, wouldn't it? Reading the Epstein list live would get their attention. That came from Tim Benning. Tim, that might be the answer of the day. Fran Sweeney says, watching the left make fools of themselves. Barry Sellers is the hometown goat, apparently. Democrats giving us One more reason to despise them, maybe. And Liz writes, he should ask every person in Congress who voted for men to be allowed in women's sports to stand up. Take a bow. Wave to the crowd. Stand up. Be proud of your vote. You know what? That's pretty smart. I like that. Joe Jammy, as he posts on Truth Social, I expect for him to tell it like it is, which will undoubtedly include highlighting his achievements in his historically productive first 6 weeks, fulfilling his promises to the America First agenda. Bravo, Mr. President. Keep it coming. All right, one more reminder. Starting 8 o'clock tonight, complete coverage of the address to the joint session of Congress. 8 o'clock here in Real America's Voice, hosted by Steve Bannon. I might even join the fun. We'll see you there, 8 o'clock tonight on Real America's Voice.